Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's Daf Hayomi, Zevachim Daf Samach. Perhaps we'll combine Samach with Samach Aleph due to the fact that Samach Aleph is quite a small Daf. So we'll join them together and we begin on Samach Amar Aleph around halfway down the Amid. Amar Rava Moide Rabbi Yehuda B'Damim. Says Rava, you meant to know that even Rabbi Yehuda, who told us yesterday that they will mekadesh, to sanctify the floor area of the Azar as well, to be used as a mizbeach. This was back in the time of Shlomo HaMelech, during those celebrations when they were inaugurating the new Beis HaMikdash, the new mizbeach, and the amount of karbanis that they brought on that day was immense, and it exceeded, according to Rabbi Yehuda's opinion, it exceeded the maximum capacity of the mizbeach, and that necessitated being mekadesh the ritzpah as well, the floor space around the azar, around the mizbeach, to be used as a mizbeach. So they would burn the fats and the parts of the karbanis on the ritzpah, on the floor of the azar, in lieu of the mizbeach. However, says Rava, that's limited to burning and being makriv in that manner, but actually applying the dam, the blood of the mizbeach, of the carbon, that requires an actual mizbeach. The floor is not enough. Amar Rava, Moide. Rabbi Yehuda B'Damim, even Rabbi Yehuda would agree, in terms of blood applications, an actual mizbeach is required. How do I know? The Sanya, we have a brisa. Rabbi Yehuda, this was on Erev Pesach, where they had to handle a ton of carbon Pesachs that came to the Beis HaMikdash. And Rabbi Yehuda says they would actually, fill up, they would collect a container of blood from the blood that they found on the floor. They would fill one container of the blood mix on the floor. They would fill it up and take it to the Mizbeach, and pour it on the Mizbeach. What was the purpose? It was to accommodate a spilled blood, perhaps one or many of the karbanis' blood got spilled on the floor and never reached the Mizbeach. So this would sort of remedy that issue, accommodate any lost blood. Right? Because in case one or many of the karbanis Pesach had their blood accidentally spilled onto the floor instead of the Mizbeach, this would accommodate it. Nimtza, it turns out that this act of collection and transfer to the Mizbeach, machshirai, would rectify that issue. Now the question is, why bother collecting, transferring to the Mizbeach? Leave it on the floor. This is Rabbi Yehuda speaking. According to him, the floor qualifies as Mizbeach, just as good. Fine, so it's pulled on the floor. It's fine. Now, if we are to say that Sava Rabbi Yehuda Kula Azara Mikacha, then in fact Rabbi Yehuda holds the entire Azara floor is Kaddish, like a Mizbeach. So you're done. The mitzvah had been fulfilled by simply having the blood reach the floor. We're assuming that it was collected in a klisharis, as we learned way back. The Kehanim Azaris, they're careful, they're conscientious, of course. We assume the Kabbalah was executed properly. But perhaps the container with the blood, tipped over and spilled out. Okay, but either way, it arrived at its destination. The floor is just as good as the Mizbeach. Oh! What does that tell us? That regarding dam, floor, does not qualify. And that's why they had to recollect it and transport it to the Mizbeach. That proves our point. Well, no, not so quick. Viduma, perhaps. Theoretically, floor works. But in this case, Mishum because Savar Shvicha Mekoyecha Adam Be'inan. He holds that you need to do the Shvicha Mekoyecha Adam by way of a person. Person has to actually pour it. You can't just tip over and spill on the floor. It's got to be poured on the floor, if anything, right? So perhaps that was the issue. Since it happened just by itself, Even if we'll say floor is like Mizbeach. But there was no shvicha, mikayach ha'adam. And that's what they were trying to rectify. Well, if that was the only issue, just collect it and pour it back on the floor. Why take it to the Mizbeach? You need a personal act, fine, collect it and pour it down again. Well, perhaps floor does qualify even for dam, but after all, it is preferred to put it on the Mizbeach. Floor is just, second best. So perhaps floor really qualifies. We haven't really substantiated that. Floor doesn't qualify for dam, perhaps it does. It's just, ideally, Mizbeach is better. That's why I went there. Okay, Amar B'Lasar. In connection with what we learned yesterday, that when Mizbeach becomes pogum, the Mizbeach is damaged, you cannot do shchita of karbanis. Karbanis require an intact Mizbeach. What about eating the leftovers, the basar of the karbanis, whether it's kaddish kadashim, kadashim kalam, or leftovers of a mincha? Does that require the Mizbeach to be intact? Amar Rabbi Lazar, yep, Mizbeach shenivga. If the Mizbeach was damaged, ein oichlen, you cannot eat beginoi on account of this Mizbeach. Shiare mincha, leftovers of a mincha. Shenamar, as the pasuk says, by the miluim, parsha shmini, v'yichlu matzos, eat the mincha in a matzah form, heitzel ha-Mizbeach. Which almost sounds like they have to be standing near the Mizbeach. That's incorrect. Since when did they have to stand near the Mizbeach? The entire Azara qualifies. As Rashi brings the pasuk, "Tayachal b'makim kadosh," just eat it in a holy place. B'chatzar ohel moed, anyone in the chatzar ohel moed. So what's the reference to the Mizbeach here? Oh, to tell you that it's contingent upon the existence of the Mizbeach. It's almost like you can say that when one eats a korban, he's eating off Hashem's table. What symbolizes Hashem's presence, Hashem's table? The Mizbeach. Even today, our table at home, right? This Sfarim bring is meant to be treated with respect. It's holy like a Mizbeach. We eat l'shem shemayim, like a korban to Hashem. So you can only eat that korban if Hashem's table, so to speak, is in place, is intact. Ella rather bizman shu shalom, v'le bizman shu chaser. The pasuk says, it doesn't mean in terms of proximity or location, right near. No, it just means to say the Mizbeach has to be there to allow consumption of these karbanis. Ashkan shiarik mincha. Okay, that addresses the leftovers of a mincha, which is the topic of discussion in that pasuk. Kodesh kedashim and all. What about other kodesh kedashim? Talmud kodesh, kodesh. There's a girl say asya kodesh, kodesh. We have gzera shava. It says Kodesh Kedashim here, it says Kodesh Kedashim by the Oila, by the Chatas. Just as Mizbeach is required for consumption of the Mincha, likewise by other Kodesh Kedashim. What about Kodshim Kalam, the lighter, lower form of Karbanis? Minayin. How do we know that they also require a Mizbeach to allow consumption? Amar Abaye, here goes. As Yomid Rasha Rabbi Yossi. We learn that of Rabbi Yossi's Rasha. Okay, it's going to be a step-by-step, sort of process, a discussion until we get to the end point, which is going to be that a Mizbeach is needed to allow consumption of even Kodeshim Kalam, like a Bechor, like a firstborn kosher animal. The Sanya, as we find in the Bryce. Rabbi Yossi Omer, let me tell you three things that I heard from three different Chachamim. Gimel Dvarim, Rabbi Yossi Omer, Gimel Dvarim, Mishum Gimel Zakenim. There were three things from three different Zakenim. And here comes one of them. V'zeh echad mehem. In the name of Rabbi Yishmael. Rabbi Shmuel Omer. What about nowadays? We all know that Maser Sheni is meant to be eaten in Yerushalayim. As the pasuk says, Lifnei Hashem, in front of Hashem, in front of the Shechina. Nowadays, if we separate Maser Sheni from our crop, what do we do with it? Can we take it to Yerushalayim? We know where Yerushalayim is. Can we take it up there and eat it? Or do we have to go and transfer the Kedusha onto money, make a pidyon, and take the money and destroy it? Okay, which way do we do? Rabbi Shmuel Omer. Perhaps even nowadays, perhaps you can travel up to Yerushalayim with your Maser Sheni and have a meal. Perhaps. The answer is no. We compare Maser Sheni to Bechor, and Bechor doesn't work nowadays. You can't eat it in Yerushalayim. How do we know Bechor cannot be consumed nowadays in Yerushalayim? That's coming up a little bit later. But that's the assumed fact. And by extension, Maser Sheni as well. Vidinu, we make a correlation. A Bechor, right, a Korban Bechor, To'on Avos Mokim, needs to be brought to Yerushalayim, of course, and processed in the Beis HaMikdash like a Korban. Umaser To'on Avos Mokim, likewise Maser Sheni, needs to be brought to Yerushalayim. Just like Ma Bechor Einu Elov Ne'abai, just like Bechor can only be consumed when there is a Beis HaMikdash in place. Af Maser Einu Elov Ne'abai, likewise, Maser Sheni needs a Beis HaMikdash for consumption. Okay, again, how do we know that that it's true by Bechor? We'll see a bit later. Says the Gemara, how could you compare one to the other? I mean, Bechor is a full-fledged Korban. It's not like just mundane material like Maser Sheni that doesn't need an actual Mizbeach, a Beis HaMikdash for processing. Bechor is a full Korban. You need a Mizbeach for the Dam, for the Emur, and of course you need a Beis HaMikdash. Ma'ala Bechor shekein to'an matan damim, v'emurim gavim Mizbeach. How could you compare? Of course a Bechor can only be processed when you have a Beis HaMikdash because it has the blood and the Emur for the Mizbeach. Well, Bikurim Yechichu, that argument can be refuted by taking a look at another item called Bikurim, first fruits that you bring to Beis HaMikdash, which require a Beis HaMikdash. It says L'fnei Mizbeach, right? B'nicha L'fnei Mizbeach, he placed it in front of the Mizbeach. Despite not having any Dam and Emurin, apparently, even without that factor, a precondition is Beis HaMikdash in existence. Well, says the Gemara, how could you compare to Bikurim? Mali Bikurim shekein tunin hanocha. Of course, Bikurim needs a Mizbeach and a Beis HaMikdash. You have to place it near the Mizbeach. Something that Maser Sheni doesn't have, Talmud Loymar. So we lost our, substantiation. Rather, we'll go over to a pasuk, which tells us to connect, to make a hekesh between Maser Sheni and Bechor. Whatever applies to Bechor, which means it needs a Beis HaMikdash, likewise Maser Sheni. Talmud Loymar, Ravesim Shama, Eloiseichem, and the pasuk continues. Zevachim, Maser Sheni, Truma Asiyatchem, here comes Ubechoris and Bechoris as well. By mentioning these two items in one breath, one sentence, that affects a connection, a hekesh. Makish Maser Bechor, we connect Maser Sheni to Bechor, and just like Bechor, Ma Bechor Einu Elov Ne'abayis can only be consumed when the Beis HaMikdash is in place. Af Maser, likewise, Maser Sheni, you're only going to eat it when you have a Beis HaMikdash. So we needed this hekesh because we couldn't really learn directly from Bechor, because Bechor has, its Korban elements. We couldn't learn from Bikurim, which has its own Mizbeach requirements. Well, says the Gemara, let's do what we typically do when we have, disparity between two possible sources. We find the common denominator. Let's do the same here. Let's find the common element between Bechor and Bikurim and conclude that these things need a Beis HaMikdash. Likewise, Maser Sheni. Let's make a commonality between the two. Because Bechor requires Beis HaMikdash, even though it doesn't have Bikurim's element of the Hanocha near the Mizbeach, and likewise Bikurim requires Beis HaMikdash, even though it doesn't have Bechor's, blood and a Murin element. So what's the Tzad HaShav? What's the common denominator? Both need to be brought to Beis HaMikdash, to, the Beis Yerushalayim, and you need a Beis HaMikdash intact to consume them. Likewise, Maser Sheni has to be brought up as well, needs a Beis HaMikdash. So without the hekesh of the pasuk, we have a proper source to require a Beis HaMikdash in place for consumption of Maser Sheni Yerushalayim. No, Mishum Dikkel and Mifrach, you can refute this correlation. You know what's common to those two possible sources, Bikurim and Bechor? They have somewhat of a Mizbech element embedded in them. Bechor's, Dam and Emur are processed on the Mizbech, and the Bikurim is meant to be placed near the Mizbech. They both have a Mizbech component to them, which Maser Sheni doesn't have. So perhaps he doesn't need a Mizbeach or Beis HaMikdash in place. Okay. So that required a pasuk, a hekesh, and the hekesh was, just as Bechor requires a Beis HaMikdash, likewise Maser Shein. Asks the Gemara again, the obvious question. How do we know that Bechor needs a Beis HaMikdash? We haven't yet proven that point. Micah Sover, what does Rabbi Shmuel hold? That gives him that sort of confidence and clarity that Bechor needs a Beis HaMikdash. Micah Sover, if he holds Kedusha Rishonah, that the initial Kedusha, which was active when they moved into Eretz Yisrael, when they built the Beis HaMikdash, stayed active even after exile. Kitcha L'Shata was activated at that time. The Kitcha also loved it, and it was a permanently active Kedusha, and outlasted the Churban as well. So even today, we have the Kedusha of Eretz Yisrael, of the Beis HaMikdash, right? So then Afilu Bechor Nami. So in that case, you could even process a Bechor nowadays. Rashi brings the Gemara in Megillah. If we hold that the Kedusha is still active, is still in place, you can actually be makriv a Bechor, even if you have no physical, structural Beis HaMikdash or Mizbeach. You just find the right place where the Mizbeach was and you do it there. So even Bechor is valid nowadays. Why are we assuming it's not? On the other hand, if he holds up the opinion that the original Kedusha that was present when the Beis HaMikdash was there is no longer around today until the Beis HaMikdash is rebuilt, B'kar b'yameinu. So then, Afilu Bechor Nami Teboy. So the same question that you're posing regarding Maser Shein, could it be consumed today even without the Beis HaMikdash, will apply even to a Bechor. How? Says Rashi. Suppose they did the Hakrava of the Bechor while they had a Beis HaMikdash, and then suddenly Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, and you have the basar standing here, right here. So the same question would apply: can you eat it or not? Is it called Lifnei Hashem or not? So what makes us assume that a Bechor is X, and the question mark only applies to Maser Sheni? The same question applies to Bechor as well. Amar Ravina, let me explain to you. Certainly, Rabbi Shmuel is of the opinion that the Kedusha that was there initially is no longer active. In which case you can't really bring a Bechor today. Okay, but let's say the Bechor had already been processed during the Beis HaMikdash's time, and now the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, and you have the basar right here. A short period, right? It has to be within, a day or so, right? The reason why we assume, the reason why we're so sure, actually, that you cannot eat that Bechor anymore, is because we're speaking about a case like this. V'achab ma'askina, we're speaking about the case that we just described. The Bechor shenizrak damei koidem, churban habayis. The Bechor had been processed, the blood had been applied to the Mizbeach prior to destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. And suddenly Bechor of habayis, Beis HaMikdash has been destroyed. And now we're still within a day or two. V'aydaim sari kayim, and the flesh is right here, ready for consumption. It's not a question mark. You can't eat it. Why? Because we have a pasuk that makes a hekesh, a connection between the two elements, the two parts of a Bechor. The dam of the Bechor and the basar of the Bechor. Rashi brings the pasuk, Ves damam tizroik, ves chelbam taktir, u besaram yalachon. In the same pasuk we have a reference to the basar and the dam of Bechor. And we learn as follows. When you're holding at a point in time that you could theoretically apply the blood to the Mizbeach, which means there is a Mizbeach intact, there's Beis HaMikdash active, then the basar of that Bechor is also ready for consumption, but otherwise not. After destruction, you cannot bring a carbon today. So even though in this case, it had already been processed while you had a Beis HaMikdash, the damad had been applied to the Mizbeach while you had a Mizbeach, but now that you don't have a Beis HaMikdash anymore, it's no longer a point in time that you can theoretically process a Bechor properly. You can't eat the basar as well, even though it's been left over from a properly processed Bechor during the Beis HaMikdash's reign. You connect the basar to the dam of the bechar. Ma damai, just like the blood, b'mizbeach needs a mizbeach. Besar, likewise, consumption of the flesh of that same korban b'mizbeach needs an active mizbeach. Okay, so once that's been established, okay, we were looking for the source. How do we know? Why are we so sure that a bechar nowadays is disqualified from consumption? The answer is the hekesh between the basar and the dam of the bechar. And now we extend it over to Maser Sheni by way of that hekesh, right? V'asi Maser, v'yolaf bechar. Just like nowadays a bechar cannot be consumed in any which way, likewise Maser Sheni. Ask the Gemara, hold it. This is a double hekesh. And we already know that you can't learn halachas regarding karbanis from a double link. Can something that had been learned from a hekesh to begin with, such as the status of the basar of the bechar, which is only derived from the dam of a bechar, can now be turned around and transferred, further exported to the Maser Sheni by way of another hekesh? That's a double link. The answer is Maser Dagan Chulanu. Although the source material is a bechar, right? It's the dam to the basar, that's bechar, that's korban related. But your final destination is Maser Sheni, which is not korban material, and this double link issue only applies to korban related materials. But Maser Dagan, the master of your grain, Chulanu, it's sort of mundane. Chulanu, and therefore you can learn it from this double link. That works according to the opinion that we always focus on the recipient. And if the recipient in this case is not korban, it's okay. But if you look at the provider of that material, the source, and if that's korban, you can't transfer that information, two times. So we're back stuck. Michael Meimar. The answer is there was never a double link to begin with. Dama basar chal de milsahi. The initial link was within the bechar itself. The basar has been compared to the dam. The dam needs a mizbeach, the basar needs a mizbeach. That's not really considered an export process, because it's chad milsa, it's two parts, two components of the same whole, the same korban. So you're just sort of comparing, two components within the same entity. That's not called a hekesh, that's not really called exported information. So all you have is one hekesh taking from the information from the bechar, i.e. that it requires a Beis HaMikdash and a mizbeach. Likewise, Maser Sheni can only be consumed in the presence of the Beis HaMikdash. Only that's really called truly Lefnei Hashem. Okay, let's just recap. We have a halacha that a mizbeach, an intact, undamaged, unblemished mizbeach is needed for consumption of Kaddish Kadoshim, even of Kachim Kalim. Kaddish Kadoshim we learn from the pasuk by the Miluim. Eitz la mizbeach, we need a full mizbeach. Kachim Kalim is learned from Rabbi Shmuel's Hekesh, who connects Maser Sheni to bechar. And just as bechar requires a Beis HaMikdash and a mizbeach, likewise Maser Sheni. Hence we see that bechar, which is Kachim Kalim, requires a full Beis HaMikdash in place. Okay, picking up on that, Kisolak Ravin. When Ravin traveled up to Eretz Yisrael, he met up with Rabbi Yirmiyah, who actually moved from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael. Amra Lashmatas, he related this halacha of Abaye that he learned from Rabbi Shmuel, that Kachim Kalim can only be consumed when the mizbeach is in place, intact. He related the halacha to Rabbi Yirmiyah. Amra Lashmaita, Kamed Rabbi Yirmiyah. Rabbi Yirmiyah was less than impressed. He says, those people in Bavel, Amar Bavloi, the Babylonian Tipshoi, they're the silly ones. I'm told just because the Asfi, they dwell Ba'arach HaSheikh, a low down, low lying, dark area. Amri Shmata the Machashcha, they convey dark sayings, dark lessons, dark halachas. I disagree. Consumption of Kachim Kalim don't need a mizbeach in place. Leishmielu, haven't they heard the halacha, the brisa, which indicates otherwise? Hadasani of a brisa. Shasilk masois. So, in the midbar, they did a lot of traveling, and the Mishkan would come along. They would take it apart, transport it to the new location, reassemble it. What happens when they're en route, in transit. Bishas siluk ma'asois. Rashi explains this to mean when they dismantle the Mishkan and the Mizbeach and the two Mizbeachs, right? While they're doing the ma'asois, while they're traveling. So although the Kedusha of the area still remained intact, 3 levels of Kedusha, the Machne Shechina, around the actual Mishkan, even though it was dismantled, it still contained the presence of the Shechina. The next level was the Machne Levia, the Levium camping. Even though they were moving along, they sort of encompassed the Kedusha of Machne Levia, and the Machne Yisrael rested on the general public, even though they were in transit. In fact, as we'll see in a second, let's see, Kachem Nifsolan, so the Karbonis could not be eaten at that point. V'zavim u'mitzarayim mishtalchem chutz l'mechitza. This is despite the fact that the Kedusha of the general 3-tier Kedusha, 3-level Kedusha was still around. Machne Shechina, Machne Levia, Machne Yisrael. In fact, the people who were tummy had to be sent away. They had to travel outside of the general camp. So even in transit, they still contained the Kedusha. So the Oyel Moyed are still called Oyel Moyed, etc., etc. The Zav, the Mitzvah, had to be sent out. So why does the Brisa say you can't have Karbonis? Explains Rashi, apparently because the Mizbeach was out of place. So that's one Brisa, okay? Mizbeach in place is a prerequisite for consumption of Karbonis. But now we have another Brisa. Tani Idach, we have another Brisa. You're fine eating Karbonis even when the Mizbeach was on the move. Tani Idach, B'shnei Mekaymes, in 2 situations, 2 locations. Kachim nechal nikid Karbonis. Rashi explains this to mean whether everything was, stationed in place, that's one type of place, or even when they're in transit, moving. Apparently, you could consume Karbonis even when the Mizbeach is on the move. My loves, how do we reconcile these 2 brises? Here it says you can't, here it says you could. Oh, depends what type of carbon. Oh, the first brisa which says you can't, that consumption requires Mizbeach, is speaking Mekadosh Kadashim. Because that was learned from the pasuk Esla Mizbeach by the Meluim. Ha b'kachim kalim. Versus the second brisa, which doesn't relate eating Karbonis to the Mizbeach. That's kachim kalim. Apparently, kachim kalim don't need that. Amar Ravina says, Ravina, no, not necessarily. Either kachim kalim, perhaps both brises relates to kachim kalim. But let's recall there was a machlekes. Who was the one who said you can't eat a bachar nowadays? Rabbi Shmuel. Okay. The answer is Ha Rabbi Shmuel. First price is Rabbi Shmuel, who says Mizbeach is needed for achila of kachim kalim, just like achila of the bachar, right? Ha Rabban. The second price is the Rabban. Don't have that source. Hibayisem, another way to explain Hava b'kadosh kadashim. Price number 1 which says you can't eat, and price number 2 which says you could. Both are speaking about the highest karbanis kachim kadashim. But let's re-explain the second brisa, which never meant you could eat the carbon without a mizbeach in place. Mizbeach is in place. It's just that the Mishkan has begun being dismantled. The kloim, the curtains around the area, the dismantling process has begun, but the mizbeach is still in place. Umay b'shnei mekaymes. What are these 2 places that the brisa referred to? Both are speaking that Mizbeach is in place. Koidem, Shiamidu Levim Sa Mishkan, the first is speaking where the Levim hadn't yet set up the Mishkan. Rashi actually says that the Lashon here is just is sort of a loose Lashon. It just means that the Mizbeach, the Mishkan had already been erected, it's all in place, it's great. So, under typical circumstances, sure. And the second Makaim is L'achar. Shifarku. Hallelujah. It's a Mishkan speaking after they began dismantling the Mishkan. Levim would do it in preparation for travel. But the Mizbeach was still in place. And the point is, don't think that there's a psul of Yaitse, says Rashi, that it's as though the carbon had left the area, because there's no area. It's the enclosure had been taken away. Right? Kachim has to stay in the Azaro and the Chatzar. Right? In the Midbar was called the Chatzar. Don't think it lost that status. The answer is it's still okay. In fact, it sounds from Rashi that even once they start traveling, there's no psul yaitse on the carbon material, even though they're on the road. It hadn't left the area. It's still all Malkim Kedusha, and it's sort of in transit, and then when it gets reestablished, it's just back to where it was. Tesis seems to argue, but in any case, the point is consumption. Could he consume? Yeah. Because the Mizbeach is still here. We're not yet traveling. But while they're traveling, yeah, then you can't. Until things are back in place. Oh, the Gemara makes this point. Perhaps I would think Ifsulu b'yotzei, right? That once you dismantle the curtains and the enclosures, the carbon is considered as though it left the area. And it would become pasul. Kamashman, the point is no. It stays kosher. Perhaps it does become pasul b'yotzei. Amakra, no, v'nasa oil moyet. Oh, the pasuk in describing the traveling says v'nasa oil moyed. Even when it's traveling, it still has Hashem's oil moyed. It still has the Shechina. It's unaffected by location. Even though it's traveling, right? It's still considered even though it left its location. Oil moyed, it's still considered oil moyed. It still has its status and its kedusha. And that Kedusha sort of encompasses and incorporates all the carbonates that are linked to it. They're still considered a Makim Kaddish, and as soon as they reestablish themselves in the next location, you can have those carbonates without an issue. Okay, so in any case, back to the halacha of eating carbonates without a Mizbeach. So according to the previous Gemara, Rabbi Lezer's halacha was whether it's kachim kalim, you can't have it. Rabbi Yirmiyah was unimpressed regarding kachim kalim. He says we have no source for that. In fact, he had a brisa. He could eat them even without a mizbeach. The Gemara provided a couple answers. Perhaps it's machlekes Tanaim. Rabbi Shmuel was the one who said a bachar needs a mizbeach. Likewise, kachim kalim, but the Rabban disagreed. Perhaps we're speaking about kachim. And the Mizbeach is still around. So certainly that's okay. And the Chiddush is, there's no psul of Yaitse. Okay, speaking about the Mizbeach, here comes another halacha regarding the Mizbeach. Regarding the makeup, the description of the Mizbeach. So in the Mishkan, in the Midbar, what type of Mizbeach was it? We're speaking about the external Mizbeach, not the one in the Heichel, which was made of gold. The one outside, the Azara, in the Mishkan was called the Chatzar. The Pasuk calls it Mizbeach. It was Nechoshes, Mizbeach Nechoshes, right? It was copper covered wood, right? Which comprised the structure, and it was filled. The gap inside was filled with earth. That was in the Mishkan. Then, when they came to Eretz Yisrael, there were a couple of stages, right? We know there was a period of 14 years while they were capturing and dividing the land, where the Mishkan was located in a place called Gilgal. Then they relocated to a place called Shiloh for 369 years. Oh, a long time, 369 years. And that Mishkan looked a bit different. It was, it had solidly constructed stone walls and sort of material covering on top. And then they moved over to a place called Noiv, and then to Givoin, and ultimately over to Yerushalayim, to the permanent Beis HaMikdash built by Shlomo HaMelech. What did the Mizbeach look like throughout all these phases? Says Rav Huna Marav, although in Gilgal initially there was no change, they used the old Mizbeach of Moshe Rabbeinu, but when they came to Shiloh, they reconstructed, they built a stone constructed Mizbeach. Amar Rav Huna Marav, Mizbeach shel Shiloh was comprised of stone, shel Avanim Haya. The Sanya, as we learned in the Brisa, we have a hint to this in the Torah itself. Matam Aleimar, we find 3 times the Torah referencing a stone Mizbeach. Avanim, Avanim, Avanim. Shalish Pamim. What are these 3 references? corresponding to the 3 times that they had a Mizbeach Shel Avanim. Echad, one was Shel Shiloi, as we just mentioned. Ve'echad Shel Noi V'Givain. The Noi V'Givain was also made of stone. And finally, Ve'echad Shel Beis Elam, and one in the Beis HaMikdash. Mosiv Rav Acha Bar Ami. He has a question. You're telling me they switched? They retired Moshe Rabbeinu's copper Mizbeach for the sake of the stone Mizbeach in Shiloi? Really? The Brisa says like this. It was one continuum. Eish sheyardim min hashamayim, b'mayim Moshe, the heavenly fire, miraculous spiritual fire that descended from heaven in the time of Moshe Rabbeinu, and was present on Moshe Rabbeinu's copper Mizbeach, stayed in place until Shlomo HaMelech built the Beis HaMikdash and retired Moshe Rabbeinu's Mizbeach. Le'nistalkem Mizbeach and Achoshes never left that Mizbeach. Ella only all the way b'mei Shlomo, the time of Shlomo. And likewise, ve'esh shi'arda b'mei Shlomo, the eish that descended in the time of Shlomo HaMelech on the new Mizbeach. Le'nistalkem never left. Ad sheba Menashe v'silka till Menashe came, did Avodah Zarah, and chased it away. Clearly, it was the same Mizbeach. There was no change until the Beis HaMikdash. You're telling me that in the time of Shiloi, they switched the Mizbeach? V'misa, according to you, Mikaro distalically. It left earlier than the Shlomo HaMelech Beis HaMikdash. It left when they built a new Mizbeach on the time of Shiloi. Says the Gemara, you're right, it's a Machlokes Tanaim. Hu Damar K'Haitana, Rav, who told us that the Mizbeach Shel Shiloi was made of stone, is in line with the following Tana. Hu Damar Rabbi Nosson, son of Rabbi Nosson Omer, that in fact it was constructed in this manner. Mizbeach Shel Shiloi was made of Shel Nechoshes Haya, Cholol, hollow copper, Umalei Avana, filled with stones. Exactly as Rav tells us that it was a stone Mizbeach. Rav Nachman Yitzchak Omar, he says, no, let me answer the question more simply. Sure, all agree. They reconstructed and turned it into a stone Mizbeach. When the Brisa says the fire still remained, okay, it could still stay there, even though they switched Mizbeach. Ma'ilei nistalka. The Brisa says that the original fire never left. Yeah, le nistalka levatal. It didn't leave completely. Mahi, what does that mean? Rabban Amri Shviva Mishadra. The heavenly fire was present on Moshe Rabbeinu's Mizbeach, off to the side. So in addition to the stone, primary one, they had the Moshe Rabbeinu's Mizbeach sitting on the side, and Shviva Mishadra would send sparks. So there were sparks coming out of that fire sitting on Moshe Rabbeinu's Mizbeach, which would ignite the fire on the regular Mizbeach. So that was going on until they came to the Beis HaMikdash, when the fire was transported to the actual Mizbeach of Shlomo HaMelech. Rav Papa Amar, Ushpi Zavanakat. The fire was like a guest. It adopted sort of a guest schedule. V'zimn and Hacha. At times it was on Moshe Rabbeinu's Mizbeach, at times it would relocate to the stone Mizbeach in Mishkan Shiloi. So in any case, yeah, we can go with Rav's assertion that there was a new stone Mizbeach in Shiloi. Regarding the fire, it was still around. Either it was sitting nearby, shooting sparks, or would alternate between the Mizbeach Nechoshes and Mizbeach Avon. Okay, so we discussed a couple of halachas regarding Mizbeach. Even Rabbi Yehuda, who allows hakrav on the floor, but regarding dam, Mizbeach is needed. And Mizbeach is needed to eat kajim kadoshim, according to some, even kajim kalim. And we discussed the various stages regarding the Mizbeach, Mizbeach shel Nechoshes, Mizbeach shel Avonim, and finally Mizbeach that was built at the time of Shlomo HaMelech in the Beis HaMikdash. Shibana b'mehir b'mein omen. All the best to you and Atzlach.